Welcome back to Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. My name is Mark, and yes, this is the Mark Moses Show, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. Right now here on the Club 52 hotline, good friend of mine who works for the Tampa Bay Rays Radio Network. His name is Neil Solondz. He is the pre- and post-game man. He knows everything for the Rays. So we got to talk some Rays baseball here on the Club 52 hotline. Neil, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, as always love getting your insight into the Rays in the AL East. And look, you look at the Rays, 28-45, last place right now here in mid-June. I got to ask the obvious question. What's going on with this team? I mean, high expectations. You made the playoffs last year, and now it's the last place team in the AL East. I mean, what is going on with this baseball club?
Well, I mean, simply put, they play poorly. I mean, I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's not an aspect of the game where they've played well. They've been noted as a pitching and defense team. Their pitching here in the month of June has been much, much better, but still not good enough. The defense hasn't been good enough. The offense has certainly not performed well. So there's really not an area of I hate to oversimplify it, but they've played poor baseball.
Is there a moment on this season, maybe in May, maybe in April, where you're kind of like, all right, maybe we're not going to compete like we did the past couple of years? Was there a stretch of games, anything like that you saw, or it's been a while now?
I never thought this. There were a lot of people that tagged this team as a World Series team, and I didn't. I tagged it as a likely wild card team. As they were last year. I thought a lot of clubs in the American League had improved significantly. I thought there was a lot of balance, and there were areas that I was worried. Once they lost a second and third starter in the rotation in April, I was concerned about their ability to hang in. They really didn't hang in, and I thought the offense put a lot of pressure on itself. And while they've had good stretches of 4 or 5 days at a time, they've never really put 2-3 weeks, a month of good baseball together. And then other areas, when they have performed, other areas of the team have not. So it's just been an incomplete effort since the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't know that there's a game or moment other than when the injuries occurred where I thought, okay, this is going to be a good year. I mean, yesterday was probably a microcosm of the types of issues they've struggled with, but there's not a game that sticks out.
Well, you look at the game of baseball, and you talk about last season, pitching and defense. Were they just getting all the breaks? I mean, was all the mojo on their side last year when you made it all the way to the division series?
I would say hardly. I mean, last year they had injuries, but they were spread out, and they were able to hang in there. I mean, they lost Matt Moore to injury. They lost David Price to injury. They lost Alex Cobb to injury. They lost all those guys to injury, but they didn't happen all at once. They didn't happen early in the season. And I just thought that many of the same players were able to handle it better. And they were able to have players go on sustained periods where a guy might carry the team or have a terrific month or month and a half. And again, they've lost a lot of close games. It's not like they're getting blown out each and every night. I mean, the 2 games they lost against Baltimore were 7-5 and 2-0. But they've had an inability to just make plays when they're needed. And now I think the question is, okay, how do you make sure that a team that's had 6 straight winning seasons, and unless there's a tremendous run, is unlikely to see that streak continue, can be a winning team in the years to come, starting in 2015.
We're here at Neil Solondz, Tampa Bay Rays Radio Network. We're talking Rays baseball here on the Club 52 hotline. You talk about that game going on Wednesday. You lose 2-0 to, like you said, Baltimore. Alex Cobb, a local kid here from Vero Beach, 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run, but he loses the game. What are your thoughts on how he's played here over the past couple of weeks?
Well, even yesterday, he said his mechanics were not quite in order, but he battled extremely well, and that's always been one of Alex Cobb's characteristics. If you look at his season as a whole, I think probably the thing that would upset him or frustrate him the most is that he has not been able to stay on the field for every start. He had the oblique injury in April, and it cost him 5, maybe 6 starts. And if you look at his big league career, he's been not only one of the best pitchers for the Rays when healthy, but one of the better pitchers in baseball when he's healthy. And he has still not been able to make 33 starts, 34 starts in a given season. I thought he had about a 3-start rough patch in late May, early June. His last few starts, or his last 2 starts, have been really good. And now it's a question of whether he can sustain that. And then more than that, I think be a core piece going forward for this team, because I think his personality fits to be a leader type, and it's whether he stays on the field to be able to do that.
What about Joe Maddon, the manager of this team? I mean, he brought in the medicine man a couple weeks ago. I know you know about this story. I mean, if you're with the Rays, you know they brought the medicine man. What are your thoughts on Joe Maddon and the job he's done this year to try to keep this, staying positive with this ball club?
I think it's probably no different than any other year. It's just that players haven't performed this year. I think, by and large, what he tries to do is, A, focus on fundamentals, which he's been doing also in the last week and a half, doing a lot of extra early work, and B, trying to keep the guys relaxed. And that's what the medicine man idea was no different than if you brought penguins or snakes into a clubhouse or a mariachi band. And he's done all those types of things in the past, and they're designed to allow players to relax, think not 100% about baseball when the game isn't going on, so that they can allow their minds to relax and just play the game and have fun. And unfortunately, this has been a group that, for whatever reason, in key moments, has not been able to embrace the moment. They've been a team that's made more mistakes than not.
Wait a minute. When was the mariachi band? When was this going on? I would have loved to have been
last year.
That would have been awesome. Would you rather have seen that or the medicine man?
Whatever gets you wins, and I haven't kept track. I would think that would probably be the preferred route. But, and Joe said this before, it comes down to players playing. And, again, a lot of guys have underperformed this year by fairly sizable margins.
What about Evan Longoria? And we're here at Neil Solondz, Tampa Bay Rays Radio Network. He's the face of the organization. He's your big bopper in that lineup. He's only batting about .265. What has been his struggles so far this season?
I hate to use the words I don't care about batting average, but I really don't care about batting average. It shouldn't be. It's an old-fashioned number to use. To me, the bigger number is that his slugging percentage is down, and that is overall OPS, his on-base plus slugging, is down to a level that's not of a franchise-level player. The reason for it, it's hard to say. He's just been very inconsistent. This last week and a half, I think his swing has been better. I think he's hit more balls with authority to the outfield. At some point during the course of the year, maybe it was right after the team went through those pitching injuries, his swing got out of whack, and it took him probably a little over a month to mechanically get things back the way it should have been. And unfortunately, that's for a franchise type player, that's with everyone else underperforming, the Rays really needed Evan to be a guy to kind of carry the lineup, and he'd be the first to acknowledge he's had a poor season to this point.
Let's stay positive then. Who in this lineup has had a good season? Is there one or a guy's actually doing good at the plate?
Doing well. I think if you look at guys, the key is that nobody has done well with guys in scoring position. There are a lot of guys, again, you brought up batting average. There are a lot of guys who are probably at their norm batting average-wise during the course of the season compared to previous years or career numbers. But if you look at what this team is doing with runners on base, and they had no hits with runners in scoring position yesterday, none of them have performed with men on base. I think, Ben Zobrist is 6 for 55 now with runners in scoring position. He's hitting .255, but, you've got to perform when it's most meaningful. I think James Loney, who, again, has put up decent overall numbers, is, I think, 1 for his last 20 with runners in scoring position. So, to me, it's about producing when it matters most, and that's why this team has lost so many 1- and 2-run games, because guys have not done that. Now, the question is, I think the more relevant question is, going forward, are these guys now going to start performing to their norms, with guys on base in terms of their, extra base hit potential? Or are there some guys they need to move because they don't believe that they're going to be able to do that, and that in turn would help build this team for the coming years?
Let me end with David Price then. He's the guy I could see where, ESPN goes crazy at the trade deadline, says, oh, who's going to get David Price? Is he for sale? What trade could you make? Is that coming? If this team stays in last place, is this going to turn into maybe the David Price sweepstakes in your estimate?
Well, I mean, that's what everyone's guessing. But again, the term to me, fire sale, is the worst term to use because, the Rays aren't going to sit there saying, okay, we're getting rid of every player we have. A fire sale means you're giving him up for less than he's worth. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way the Rays make moves is because they get what they believe a guy is worth. And I would think that a guy who has the best, strikeout to walk ratio in Major League Baseball at nearly 12-1 at this point, even though his one loss isn't impressive and he's given up a couple more homers than previous years, to me that says that they should get a blockbuster of guys who are close to Major League ready. And your guess is as good as mine as to what team that would be. If no team's willing to do that, then why not just keep him for another year if you think he can help you get back to being a winning team in 2015?
Yeah, great point. All right, who you guys got coming up here the next couple of days for the Rays?
Well, it's Houston for 4 starting today, and that's the team the Rays just took 2 of 3 from in Houston, although they did so when Jose Altuve was down with a hand injury. And then Pittsburgh, which, has surged to get to 500 with Gregor Polanco, one of the top prospects in the game, coming up to join Andrew McCutchen. And then after that, the Rays go on a lengthy road trip. They just saw Baltimore at home. They'll see Baltimore, New York, and Detroit heading into July 4th. Certainly not easy, and you're going to learn. In my mind, this is an evaluation period, an opportunity to learn about your club further in terms of how you want to build it for next year.
Great stuff. I'm just happy you didn't say soccer as your answer. I love it, Neil. You're so great. Neil Solondz, Tampa Bay Rays Radio Network. Follow him on Twitter as well, Rays Radio. Neil, appreciate the insight, and I hope I can get you on again.
Anytime.